So I was looking at my shelf and I was wondering, what movies on my shelf have I not seen? And that's when it hit me. I was going to be reviewing a Darren Boozman movie called Twisted. I already put the review out for that. And that's when I saw this. This is the first 8 Saw films on Blu-ray. And I've had it since I worked at Walmart, which was around 2021, 2022. You know, I never watched them. I was like, every time I thought about watching it, I'm like, I'm gonna put it off. I don't feel like watching it yet. Like, I want to wait for the right time. And after watching all of the Saw movies, I'm kind of mad at myself that I didn't watch them, because I love these movies. They're not perfect in any way. They're just so interesting and so cool, in my opinion. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to review all of the Saw movies and what my fresh thoughts are on them. I spent like 2 to 3 days binging all of the Saw movies, and I slept perfectly watching them. And these are the unrated versions. 1 through 7 on here are unrated. So in this video, I'm going to be telling you my thoughts on the first Saw movie after watching it for the first time. So if you're someone that's pushed off watching this movie like I did, here's the rundown of the plot. 2 men, a photographer Adam and surgeon Dr. Lawrence Gordon, wake up chained in a grimy, industrial-looking bathroom with a dead body between them and a set of cryptic clues. They learn that they are pawns in a sadistic game staged by the so-called Jigsaw Killer, who forces victims to confront moral choices and bodily sacrifice to survive. And the film unfolds largely through the bathroom's present tense intercut with flashbacks that reveal Jigsaw's previous victims in the investigation surrounding Jigsaw himself. And this first movie is directed by James Wan. I don't know if it's his first film, but I think it's like one of his first. And the way that the narrative is structured in this movie is really similar to like why I like Zach Cregger's movies like Barbarian and Weapons, because they're in like a non-linear format. At least Weapons is. Barbarian kind of follows that same structure, but we get flashbacks and police procedural elements that are woven into the present, and like it all comes together by the end. And so it's kind of like you have these 2 people, Adam and Dr. Gordon, while they're trying to solve their own puzzle and try to get out of this room, you're also trying to put these pieces together and solve your own puzzle by watching this movie. And I think that's just really brilliant and really smart. And I love mystery movies and shows where you have like these little clues and you try to put them together while you watch the characters do it as well. And while watching this franchise, I've just left every movie thinking, wow, I never saw that coming. like I don't know if it's just me, but every single time I'm like, okay, I kind of saw that come. Like some things I was like, okay, I kind of saw that coming, but then others I'm like, oh god, how did I not see that coming? But this first film really centers on like a retributive like philosophy, where Jigsaw's traps are designed to test whether victims truly value their lives. Where these traps, they force these characters to choose between self-preservation and sacrifice for others, where it really does interrogate guilt and redemption and what it truly means to be given a second chance at life, and also like start a new like fresh life, kind of like reincarnation or like a rebirth after coming out of like one of these traps. And Saw also treats violence as this staged performance where victims are watched, recorded, and judged. And I think that camera within the film, device, and the police investigation highlight how trauma becomes that spectacle that is exploited, and how control is made through information and timing. And by placing ordinary professionals like a photographer and a surgeon in these extreme circumstances, the film really asks how far people will go when they're stripped of social rules and their comforts, where these traps expose personal failings, and we see these characters being forced into these like vulnerable situations where they have to choose ethically between like different morals, where it kind of like makes them rethink like who they are as a person, and like who their character is, and whether they can be redeemed in their character, in their philosophy, and like how they live their life. And the 2 leads within this first movie, like there's not a lot of people who are in this first movie, but the first one being Cary Elwes as Dr. Lawrence Gordon, he grounds Saw with a performance that balances that professional demeanor but also that escalating panic when he's put in like these desperate situations. And given that he's a family man in this situation, his portrayal gives like that moral dilemma where he has to choose between different things, and it just raises the stakes for the choices that he must make to survive. I think that's what makes this movie really thrive, and I'm going to get more into that. Going on to the second lead, Lee Winnell, who's also a director. I really like his work with what he did with the Insidious movies. He's also in them too. But Lee Winnell, he plays Adam, and he functions as like the audience's like surrogate, I guess. He's vulnerable, he's more like enthusiastic and kind of like makes like these little like smart comments, but he like shows his desperation a lot more, where he's more outspoken about it. He doesn't really have any like composure. But I think his physicality is what sells that claustrophobia and that slow unraveling of hope, where you wonder by the end if they're even going to make it out of this. How are they going to make it out of this? And I think this movie stands as like one of like the masterclasses in how to use a low budget to your advantage, because of how James Wan really like creates such tension in like the single primary location, using tight framing, practical sets, just such a like limited color palette to create this like sense of like decay and entrapment within this room, and like the different colors that he uses, where he uses this low budget to his advantage by focusing on nothing but like mood and the puzzle mechanics rather than spectacle, and like focusing on these two characters and really fleshing out their stories by having them be kind of dialogue heavy as well. But also there's also these flashbacks that we get. That's where I'm going to lead into like the editing, where he kind of like stitches them together, where we get like these present like action like sequences and then flashbacks to like tighten together like a knot. The way that it's handled, it feels deliberate. It feels really like close attention. The way that it's edited is like it's withholding information from you, using different cuts to restructure like how you think about this puzzle, this mystery, into different contexts, using scenes from earlier moments to recontext them, build it toward like the twist that's happening. It's just really brilliant and really feels really thought out, and the way that it's executed I think is really brilliant. And then the sound design in this movie really emphasizes that mechanical like industrial texture that again reinforces those themes of control, and like I think how this movie was like kind of like structured and made. It's just a really great example of how to use a low budget wisely. Some other movies like Paranormal Activity, Skinamarink, and then Smile is also another one where I think they really utilize their budget in a mindful and like creative way. Because this first Saw movie, it was only made for like $1 million, something like that. It's just amazing to me how like without like a huge budget, James Wan was able to, and to me that it's just really inspiring how he did that. And that's why I always say James Wan is like one of the best like horror directors, especially like The Conjuring is a classic, a movie that's in like my top 5. It might even be my top 1, I'm not sure, I keep going back and forth, but Insidious is like in my top 5 favorite horror movies of all time. Just what James Wan does with that movie too, it's just incredible. I'd really like to hear your thoughts. What do you think about Saw, the first Saw movie? Do you enjoy it? Do you think any of the other Saw movies are better? I plan to do a ranking of the Saw movies once I review all of them and tell you my thoughts on like where they stand for me. But let me know what you think about Saw down below, and don't forget to like and follow.